This is aisle 42. When the produce in our fridge looks a little squidgy around the edges, the clock starts to tick. We've got to use it, or else it's destined for the green compost bin. But what happens at the industrial level? For example, what do you do with hundreds of pounds of green bell peppers that aren't fit for the grocery store? Well, that's where it all started for the founders of the Pretty Ugly Company. In this episode, you'll hear the story of how Pierre Olivier and Lysanne have taken on a bold mission to combat food waste. Their fantastic upcycled salsa, made from discarded vegetables, saves about 2 pounds of produce per jar. They also make a delicious organic corn chip that includes beer waste. Their passion for rescuing neglected produce is fueling their rapid growth as a food company, and we get to jam on some really interesting topics around snacking and sustainability. We even chat about our shared experiences in the restaurant business, our love for Anthony Bourdain, and how the magical touch of Ryan Reynolds sure would help their cause. Ryan, if you're listening, this one's for you, buddy. Okay, here we go. I hope you enjoy listening to my conversation with Pierre Olivier from the Pretty Ugly Company. Pierre, I love the brand name. I love your story. I love upcycling, and I love salsa. But before we get to all of that, I like to kick off our conversation with a question about the future. So here you go. If you were to imagine the perfect grocery store of the future, what would it look like?
Well, there's going to be way less plastic than there's right now, that's for sure. But I think in my world, there's going to be everything from organic to upcycled ingredient only and just fresh and local produce. I mean that we don't really have to buy from the United States, right? So maybe more local and plastic-free product that and upcycled brands as well like us.
Sounds beautiful. Sounds simple, elegant, and beautiful, doesn't it? That's great. One of the things you and I have in common is our time in food service and working in restaurants. I started as a dishwasher at the age of 14. 2 weeks later, I became the only cook, the only employee left standing, actually. So I was thrust into cooking, and from that day forward, had a love affair with food and food service. Can you walk us through a little bit of your experience in the restaurant industry and how it inspired you towards combating food waste?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the restaurant business, I think, is one of the best life school and the best way to get early life lessons going on, right? I mean, I started working in the restaurant business. I was 12 because my uncle and my aunt had restaurants. So, like you, I helped on the dishwasher. I did everything from broom to being waiter. But usually what happens with the restaurant business is you see how many food is being wasted on a day-to-day basis. Usually chef, they hate waste, right? They're gonna do everything in their power to cut costs and don't waste a lot of food, right? But usually consumer waste a lot. And what really rang a bell for me is when we were doing big events or somebody, a distributor or wholesaler just will be calling us and be like, hey, I've got 5 cases of green bell peppers and I'm going to throw away. I'm going to do a really good deal on that, on those few boxes you want in. And if the chef says no, and one time he just asked, well, if I say no, what are you going to do with those boxes of green bell peppers? And say, oh, I'm just going to throw them away. So that really stick to me for a long time. And I always wanted to start a restaurant, but then COVID hit. So that wasn't a good time to launch a restaurant. But that situation that was stuck with me, I was just, okay, I got to do something that's going to bring both my love of food and my passion for business and my care for the environment, all the three together. And that's where the idea came from, actually, for founding Pretty Ugly.
So is the was it green bell peppers? Is that what that they had the big truck of?
Yeah, I think they had like something like 400 pounds of green bell peppers, and that really stuck with me.
Amazing. Have you read Anthony Bourdain's any of his books about the restaurant business behind the scenes?
Yeah, I love Anthony Bourdain. I don't have a lot of idols in life, but Anthony Bourdain is definitely one of my idol. And that's funny because my girlfriend is kind of the same on the same page with me with Anthony Bourdain. We watch so much of his cooking show traveling around and his book. I mean, it's a really, really, really good book. I don't know. He's got the way that a few people have to really describe how he feels and a unique POV of the world, right? It's so inspiring to read Anthony Bourdain. And I think if more people were like him and just ready to sit down around people and eat some good food and just talk to each other, the world's going to be a better place. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, my time in the culinary world was well before the days of YouTube and well before there were really a lot of celebrity chefs. So when years after my restaurant days, when I read Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential, I sort of just felt this kind of pull back to my younger days, but also this affinity of just someone who is saying out loud some of the things that I saw as a young man in working in kitchens. But yeah, that's interesting stuff.
Yeah, yeah. 1 year spent in the restaurant industry, it's like 7 years. Like it's like dog years. You see so many shit, and learn to so many things, and you meet so many people that you come out a changed man in only a few years being in the restaurant business. Sometimes for the best, sometimes for the worst, but hey, that's life.
Yeah, they are. Life in the kitchen is it's a totally different world. Sometimes it's not real life.
No, no, it's not. It's usually not. Yeah.
Do you see a future in which food waste is reduced at the source, or do you feel like there's just going to be this ever increasing wave of food that isn't getting consumed, it's still being grown, and where that food waste and upcycling demand is going to have to grow infinitely?
I think the way the supply chain is set up, at least in North America, there's always going to be some food waste along the way, right? The more people are involved and the more the food comes from a remote place or from California and such, there's going to be waste resulting from that. But from my perspective and with the farmers I talk with on a local basis, they're really trying to reduce waste. First, because it's not profitable to waste, right? They want to cut down costs. But I think the more and more people are getting into the farming industry, they realize that they need to have a business for the entirety of their life. They have to take care of the planet, and if they don't, well, we don't gonna have something to eat in a few years. So people are getting more conscious about that fact. And at least small and local players are doing their part to reduce waste. And upcycling is becoming more and more well known in the industry. And that's a plus. If you look back around 3 years ago, 4 years ago, there were not as many brands as there are now upcycling things, right? And so the word is getting out there, and I think that's something to look forward to.
I agree. I think it'd be a great goal to see some of those food systems change and get more sophisticated so that we are producing less waste and we're more ready to deal with the waste that we have across the board. Talk to me about salsa. I mean, you talked about having the option to rescue all these green bell peppers. So, you can only do so many things with pounds and pounds of green peppers, but has salsa always been something that has excited you, or was it this one moment where you're like, green bell peppers, I've got to deal with this. What do we make with it? Talk to me about the impetus of salsa creation on your side.
It came out of the blue. It was really a naive thought that everybody likes salsa, right? I mean, everybody know what salsa is. It's not like you were trying to create a brand of kombucha 20 years ago made with fermented kind of floating mushroom. So people know what salsa is, and it's entirely made with fresh ingredient. So the more research we're done about salsa, we found out that actually tomato is the most wasted food in the world. In Canada, on a daily basis, it's more than 1 million tomatoes being thrown away. Thrown away. It's huge. It's crazy. So salsa became the vehicle for our upcycling mission. And I mean, with our salsa for Purdue, we're the only upcycled salsa using only fresh tomato in North America. And we're about able to save about 2 pounds of vegetable per jar that we produce. And that's because it's only fresh tomato, green bell peppers, onions, and it takes a lot to do a good and fresh salsa. And you don't even sacrifice quality. It's even better because we don't use canned tomatoes like the big guys are doing out there. But yeah, it started with the green bell peppers and then some funky idea that everybody loves salsa. It's like a little bit like Anthony Bourdain, I said before. He has that ability to bring people together and just sit down and share something. And I think salsa is one of the best finger food to bring out to a hockey game, a soccer game, a pool party or something. Everybody, they don't say they do, but everybody's double dipping and it's everybody's sharing. You don't open a jar of salsa and eat it by yourself. Well, you can, but usually there's people around. So I think salsa represents us as founders, and it's the best vehicle to save 2 pounds of vegetable per jar.
I love it. It's all pretty ugly, hence the brand name. I love it.
Yeah.
And it's just fun to say, as Jerry Seinfeld says, it's salsa. Yeah, funny you should mention double dipping. I've never looked into this, but I wondered during the COVID days if there was like, were there salsa rules around double dipping? Everyone was we're all so concerned. And salsa seems like one of those share items that there wasn't a lot of food sharing going on, at least not in the early days of the pandemic. But yeah, salsa brings people together, and salsa is a communal ingredient, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. And that's what I think it's fun about salsa. But when we had our first thought of doing an upcycled product, it was around late 2021. So the pandemic was already going on. And by the time we just do the business plan and our first few research and the first recipe and the first sale on a farmer's market, the pandemic was kind of already behind. So we didn't really felt the impact of COVID-19 on a project. But yes, also just fun. It's just it's party, it's fun, you bring friends over, and this is what we want to do with Pretty Ugly. It's put the upcycling mission first and out there, and we don't want to lecture people. We don't want them to feel bad. It's just a easy and painless option. You eat chips and salsa every week. Keep doing it, but just buy ours, and it's going to be fun, simple, fresh. You can invite friends over because I feel like nowadays there's so many negative posts and news article out there, and there's so many things that can go wrong and are going wrong right now that it's hard as a person on an individual basis to just pause and say, okay, if I want to have a good impact on the environment, on the world, where do I start? It's really hard to, where do I start? That kind of thing. So this is what we want to do. We want to give that option to people. Where do you start? Well, buy a upcycling product. That's gonna have a small impact. It's not like the biggest of them all, but at least that's something that you can do on a daily basis without changing your consumption habit too much. But you can do something great on a small scale, and maybe that can snowball and do something great.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying it that way. I think we all need to find, little ways to work in conjunction with the bigger ways that we can, have an impact on the world around us. You guys, for as much as I love salsa, you've also added chips, corn chips to the mix, and you're using beer waste as an ingredient in your corn chips. Talk to me about this beer waste and upcycling a corn chip.
Yeah, but first of all, we went into salsa first and it was going very well, but there was something missing, right? Like it's the best combo, it's chips and salsa, it kind of goes together. And at first, there's some people that didn't understand what we were doing because the chips weren't there to support the salsa. We had a woman once ask us if it was mayonnaise. I mean, how can you mix the two? But anyway, we needed to bring the chips into the equation and just have this impactful combo. So we decided to take organic corn and mix it with beer waste, with our beer grains. That can be hops or anything like that. So we take that. Brewers are gonna left those grains behind after they've done brewing the beers. It's grains, so we take that, we dry it, and we put it into flour, and we mix it with regular organic corn flour. So it's gonna taste just like regular homemade tortilla chips that you can have at a Mexican restaurant, but it's going to be a little bit more sturdier. So you can put a lot of salsa onto it. So this is really nice.
I love it. I am a sucker for corn chips. I get really committed to a brand of corn chips for a while, and then I'm always trying new stuff, and then I switch allegiances, and then I have another new. This is my favorite, and so I'm not sure. Maybe I'm a brand's worst nightmare, but I think the challenge is that I really like salt. So corn chips are a wonderful way to deliver salt quite quickly.
Yeah, and actually, that's funny you're saying that because our chip, we went completely the other way around. At least for that SKU, for that particular type of chips, we decided to go the or authentic way. So it's really just corn, spent beer grain, and a little bit of sea salt. So it really tastes like traditional corn tortilla chips that you find in the south or the restaurant when you go in Texas or something like that. There's not a lot of salt, and the reason behind that is that we really wanted the people to taste what they put on the chip. That can be our salsa or some dip, some hummus, or whatever they want to try. Everything is so salty right now, so we tried to do something less salty. But we've got a lot of ideas to do some new flavor of chips that's gonna be for the salt lovers out there would like you.
Good deal. Do people ever comment that it's pretty unlikely to have a Tex-Mex, Southern inspired or Mexican inspired food production coming out of Quebec? That's not that common.
Yeah, yeah. And if you look at our branding, you're gonna see right away that we're doing things differently at Pretty Ugly. I mean, we didn't try to make us look Mexican or authentic. Me and my girlfriend are not, and we're not trying to go down that path. It's just something big, bold, funny. We want something that tastes good first and foremost, and we want to put the upcycling mission in front of everything. And then we have the quality of the product behind because like we said earlier we're coming from the instrument industry, so for us it was impossible to put a bad product out there, and we learn how to respect the ingredient. And this is one of the reasons we're the first salsa in Canada, at least, that doesn't use canned tomatoes. So when you taste our salsa, it's packed with flavor. It's super fresh, and we're saving vegetable, but you wouldn't even taste it or know it if you didn't know it was pretty ugly, right? But yeah, it was just something that we had to do something, and we found that there was the best way possible to have an impact on food waste. And like we said earlier, salsa and chip, it's like of the best combo you can have at the grocery store or at the drugstore, whatever. You just grab your beer, your chips, and salsa, and have some fun. And this is really all we are about, me and my girlfriend and the people at Pretty Ugly.
Love it. Now, the chip aisle in grocery stores, I don't know, I guess I kind of feel like it's the Thunderdome of the grocery store. It's wickedly competitive. There are some gigantic companies that command very large sections of that grocery aisle. What's it like to be the small upcycled chips and salsa brand from Quebec trying to make its mark? How are buyers responding to the story of upcycling? How are consumers responding to the approach that you guys have taken towards chips and salsa?
hmm that's a really good question. And for everybody that's involved in the business, they know how true this is and how the big guys are there. They dictate the way the chips aisle is being set up and everything. It's crazy the amount of power they have. And this is one of the reasons that, at least in Quebec, we started last year. So we're really a young brand, right? And we decided, at least at IGA, which is so based, they've got like 300 point of sales in Quebec. We decided as a young brand to go in the fresh produce section and not beside the big guys in the chip aisle because, first of all, we couldn't afford the selling fees. It's crazy expensive. And we thought maybe people gonna notice us more if we're alone besides the tomatoes that we're saving, right? We're gonna have a bigger impact that way. So we tried it for a year. It went really, really, really well. But outside of Quebec, it doesn't work that way. So now we're coming elbow to elbow with the big guys right now with other retailer, and we see that it's another world completely. But I think the consumer ready for us. I mean, the salsa dips or salty snacks is in our category. There's no innovation. There has been not a single innovation over the past 15 years. At least not. I don't think that mango salsa is innovative, right? So I think we're going to bring something new to the table, and the consumer are ready for that. I really think so. At least this is the feedback we had for the past year in Quebec. It's been tremendously well. We saved 3 times more vegetable that we thought we were going to save because we're selling. So the more we sell, the more vegetable we can save and the more big grains we can save. So I think the rest of Canada is ready for us, but we're just going to work with our strength and our weaknesses. And the weaknesses is our cash flow as a young company. But we're gonna try to make some noise and make some waves. And the buyers, I'm just gonna keep it short, but the buyers are interested and they're gonna open the door for us. So we have pretty good feedback for the buyers.
I love it. And that was quite the throwdown, by the way. The mango salsa is not an innovation. That's like, man, those are fighting words. I love it. What if the next truckload shows up at your door and it's mangoes? Oh, man, then you're going to have to eat your words.
Yeah, I'm going to take it for sure. But I mean, it's just a new flavor profile. It's not something completely new that do something more for the environment like we're trying to achieve. So this is what I meant by that. And there's not a lot of small company that are breaking through in that category because it's crazy competitive. So nobody want to touch that. But because we're naive and we just have a big dreams and a big idea of saving vegetables and doing something great for the environment, that we decided to attack those behemoth of companies and just trying to push our way through.
So good. Okay, so here's a fun one for you. If you were to have a celebrity sighting of someone famous eating your chips and salsa, who would you want it to be?
It has to be Ryan Reynolds, right? It just has
It does. It does have to be Ryan Reynolds. You're right. I'll give it. Is he wearing the Deadpool suit or is he just like normal, like dad Ryan Reynolds? Which Ryan is it?
Oh, it can be a mix of the two, right? Maybe he's dressed up all in white and he just spills salsa all over his white shirt and he has to change it to Deadpool or something like that. But I think Ryan Reynolds is the best Canadian ambassador for any brand out there. He's so funny and he's so committed to the brands he get on board with. He's just not like out there putting his name, doing one post on LinkedIn once. He really seems to be supporting the brand. He buys into it. So that's what I like about Ryan Reynolds. And he's funny as hell. I mean, he's a funny guy.
He is super funny. Yeah, and maybe he wants to invest in a Quebec-based upcycled chips and salsa brand, right? I mean, who knows? Who knows?
Why not? Maybe in a few years.
Good to have goals.
Yeah.
Exactly. Good deal. Where can people find your product and follow you guys and your team and what you're doing to rescue tomatoes and vegetables and make beautiful things?
The easiest way is just to follow us on social. We're available everywhere, like pretty much every brand out there. For now, we're only in Quebec and across all IGA. We're hitting shelves at Metro as well, and a lot of exciting news for us. And we're getting the ball rolling outside of Quebec. So we got deals coming through in Ontario, in the West, in Vancouver. So you guys going to see us in small mom and pop shop, but as well as bigger retailers out there in just a few weeks. So probably in early 2024, maybe around the Super Bowl, who knows? We're going to see Pretty Ugly popping throughout Canada. And it's really the goal because the more we're expanding, the more we're scaling, the more we can save vegetable and big grains. So that's the goal behind it. And this is why some people from Quebec ask us, why did you guys choose an English name? And that's because we want to be throughout North America. I think there's a big market for chips and salsa. And it represents perfectly what we're doing. We're taking ugly and funny looking vegetables and make something pretty out of it. So we're ready for attacking the English side of Canada. And I hope and I think people are going to like what we're doing.
I agree. I think it's going to go really well. And I'm excited for the brand, excited for the opportunities, and knowing that all the things that you got, all the fruit and vegetables that you guys can rescue is it's really remarkable. So thanks for leaning into the hard spaces and doing the hard things. The earth thanks you, and so do people that love chip and salsa. So thanks for doing this. Really appreciate the time, Pierre.
All right. Thanks for having me. I had a blast. Really nice.
How fun was that? I hope you enjoyed all the pretty ugliness of that one. Please visit thepretyuglycompany.com to learn more about their upcycled mission and their amazing snacks. Thanks for listening. I'm Corwin Hebert, and I'll see you in the future.